it's telling those who might be doubting Europe as going wobbly or having fatigue, it's showing that Europe is very much in the fight, that Europe is going to do what it takes to show both the Ukrainian people as well as the Russians not to think that they can wait us out, that the EU is going to move forward. And, it also sends a signal to NATO saying, look, we can do this. Why can't you?
It is still just one step along what is likely to be a pretty long and complex road, isn't it? Because it's a very complicated business joining the European Union. It's a pretty complicated business leaving it as well, as we've discovered here in the UK. But there's quite some way to go in this process, isn't there?
Well, there is, but what's unique about this is the EU decided, the Commission decided to jump ahead and let's go ahead and get the talks started and not wait for the 100% solution. It looks like the both countries had done about 90% of the reforms that were needed, and instead of waiting for the complete deal, the Germans, well, the Ursula von der Leyen, I'm sorry, led the EU to say, look, we're gonna skip ahead. We're gonna start you off on formal talks, even though you're not there yet, because we know that you're gonna make it, and we're under some time pressure right now.
Ukraine has been facing up to problems of corruption, but it is going to be expected to do more to tackle this, isn't it, as this process unfolds?
No, that's right. And as you said earlier, this is still a long road ahead. Not as long as for some others like Turkey, but it's going to be long, and it's going to be a lot of hard work. And rooting out corruption and oligarchs and that kind of thing is tough. That people are killed over that. This is something that is going to call for a lot of political will and a lot of discipline and strength, both in Moldova and in Ukraine as well. So there's not a lot of time. They're going to do a review in March and see if they're ready to go even further than just these formal negotiations. So, as you say, and it's true, Zelensky dismissed his minister of defense. He's done some other dismissing as well. So I think they're serious about it. And as someone remarked, they have no other choice. There's no way back for Ukraine. They've got to make this work.
There is, though, some resistance amongst some of the EU members, isn't there?
Well, I think our friends in Budapest are going to uh, try to see what they can get out of the deal by squeezing Ukraine and squeezing Moldova, saying, "Look, we're not real happy, Ukraine, with some of the way you handle some of the Hungarian minorities in one of your oblasts. So until you pick up your game, we're going to hold out." And so Slovakia could also cause trouble under their new leadership. But I think the eyes are on Hungary right now to see if they're going to be troublemakers here, similar to Turkey, and Sweden getting into NATO. The Turks played a blocking role there. They squeezed the Swedes so that they got something for the letting them into NATO. They're still squeezing. And so Hungary might try something similarly. I don't know. We'll have to see. But they're the ones to look at.
It's symbolically an important move, though, isn't it? At a time when many in Ukraine are very concerned that the focus of their allies is very much distracted by the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Well, I think that's a really good point. There is such distraction since the fighting in Gaza began. I can tell you here in Washington and the United States, it's overwhelmed not just the halls of the Congress and the executive branch as they talk about, but the kitchen table as everyone grapples with what's going on here. And so this does show. It shows Ukraine. It shows Russia that we haven't forgotten Ukraine. We have not forgotten those that are fighting, and the EU is going to see to it that it makes progress on its end of the bargain. And I think that was a welcomed symbol, not just in Ukraine, but also here in the U.S. and other places too. That was something that Europe was able to do and help out a great deal.
How serious is the concern that, for example, if we look at the United States, and of course Israel is a historic and very important ally. President Biden has been very strong in his support for Israel in this. And we do know that there is more military aid going to Israel. Is there a danger that that will squeeze the military support for Ukraine, particularly from somewhere like the United States? If we look at the EU, of course, the Ukraine war is a war on their doorstep. For the United States, perhaps the conflict in the Middle East appears to some to be a higher priority.
Well, that's a great question, and there's some that will say, yes, that is a higher priority. Suddenly, it's impacting our presidential politics. It's impacting the House of Representatives here in our Congress, giving fuel to those who want to slow down assistance to Ukraine. But it's also having a practical impact too of diverting assistance that might be going to Ukraine, and instead it's going to Israel. The Israeli need in terms of supplies is different somewhat than what Ukraine needs. They both need air defense. That's something that they share. But there's some things that Ukraine will continue to get because unimpeded because Israel doesn't need those things. So it's a bit of a mixed bag on the supply side, but in terms of bandwidth, just in terms of the attention of U.S. officials, both in the Congress as well as in the administration, Gaza takes a lot of attention. It takes a lot of the oxygen out of the room, and so you have people who have fatigue just trying to handle the crisis of the day. So for sure, U.S. assistance will be impacted, but we just have to make sure that we overcome that and we keep going forward with the assistance that we know Ukraine needs, and we try not to be distracted, but it's going to be hard.
But what has happened to the funding for military support? Because, of course, that was held up during all the chaos that we saw in the House. We have now got a new speaker in place there, but has a new package of military aid that was essentially parked during all of that. Has that now been resolved? Are those funds, those supplies heading towards Kyiv again?
Well, I hate to say it, but the chaos continues, even with this new speaker. The Republicans that are controlling the House have weaponized, if you will, the assistance. It's no longer looked on as something that we need to be doing for Ukraine, but it's looked on as a weapon that the Republicans are going to use against Biden, saying, "Hey, look, we're not going to provide. We'll provide assistance to Gaza, but we're not to Israel, but we're not going to provide assistance to Ukraine. We're going to hold back on that. We're going to have a debate